Journal of a Voyage from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, performed in the year 1808 by Simon Fraser. Chapter 4. Thompson River to Fort George. After leaving those Indians, we continued for the rest of the day until we came opposite a village to which we crossed. The Indians of it we found poor but civil. They regaled us with dog's flesh. Friday, July 15th, upon our march early with several Indians in our company, passed 2 camps in the course of the day. Saturday, July 16th. This day we passed several camps of Indians. The weather being wet and bad, we encamped early with a band of Indians, whose chief made me a present of a coat of mail to make shoes. We were much in want of this necessary article. Continually walking as we were among the worst of roads, our feet were covered with blisters, and some of the men were lame and in perpetual torture. Monday, Sunday, July 17th. I procured this morning several curiosities and satisfied the chief for his present of the preceding night. Went off and breakfasted at a place where, on the 15th June, I gave medicines to a sick man who was still there and unwell. About noon we came to the fort of the Ascitti tribes, i.e. the Lillooet Indians. Here the old Atnah chief and the Tuhoutin interpreter left us on our way down. The Indians received us kindly and requested that we would wait the return of their chief, who had gone to another camp. To this we agreed, and about 2 hours after, the chief made his appearance accompanied with a numerous suite. He made us a long and loud speech, to which he added the acceptable present of a few coats of mail. He then pressed us to go with him to the other camp. This invitation we had reason to decline. We, however, crossed the river and encamped directly opposite the place which the chief wished us to visit. The Indians sent canoes immediately for us. Some of us went. The camp consisted of upward of 1,000 persons, who, being strangers, I shook hands with them all round. The chief made a harangue, then invited us to his shade, where we were treated with great hospitality. At the same time, an Indian who was laboring under some disease offered me a pair of shoes, in hopes of procuring some relief. When we returned to our encampment, we learned that the Indians during our absence had made several trips across the river with invitations to the rest of our party to go and join them. Monday, July 8th. This morning, at the earnest request of the Indians, Mr. Stewart and such of the men as wished paid a visit to the camp. Mr. Stewart procured many curiosities, and the men brought back some dogs, which to their palates proved a delicious dish. A woman, who had followed our party for those 3 days past, was left last night at the camp. She, however, found means to come and join us again, and was the only native in our suite during this day. The country being extremely rough, and the paths numerous, we could not keep together. Consequently, we lost some time in waiting for those that had deviated from the right path, encamped near a village, which our little fellow went immediately to visit. On his return, he informed us that the greatest part of the cachet which we had left there was destroyed by wild animals, and that for the remainder we were under obligations to the Indians who had secured it for our return. Tuesday, July 19th. The report of the diminution of our cachet caused a gloominess among the men. Afraid of starving, some of them went so far as to insinuate a wish of remaining with the natives, and one of them dropped behind visibly with that intention, but perceiving that none of the others followed his example, he doubled his pace and in a short time overtook us. About this time we met 2 of the Atnah nation, who were upon their way to the Ascitti country, and who, returning with us, gave us some useful information. At sunset we found ourselves at the foot of the rock, which gave us so much trouble on our way down. Here several natives joined and informed us that a great many more were passing upon the hills. Although there might be no danger, I thought it advisable to run no unnecessary risk. I therefore dispatched Mr. Stuart and 2 men by way of precaution to our canoes, which were about 3 miles distant. Wednesday, July 20th. Early in the morning we proceeded on our journey, and soon after joined Mr. Stewart, when we had the inexpressible satisfaction of finding our canoes and our cache perfectly safe. For this good fortune we felt grateful to the Indians who continually attended to their security during our absence. Here we lost no time, but set about preparing the canoes for the voyage, but having no materials at hand, one of the canoes, though still good, was cut up to repair the other 2. While we were employed upon this necessary service, numbers of the natives called to see us and passed on to the other stages. Our little fellow and the 2 Atnars accompanied them. At 3 p.m., all being ready, we took our departure. Safe in our canoes, we had reason to consider ourselves as once more at home, and notwithstanding the many disagreeable moments which we had experienced, we talked of them as nothing, and we felt happy. Encamped at dark. Thursday, July 21st. Set out early. We had to oppose a strong current, and encountered great difficulties in the rapids. Rain and bad weather rendered our situation very unpleasant. While we were busy in one of the carrying places, several of the natives paid us a visit on horseback, who, in measure as their curiosity was satisfied, retired. We encamped about dark. Friday, July 22nd. We were off early, still a strong current, and many rapids. The waters having greatly abated, we had more carrying places now than before. At 8 a.m. we arrived at the rapid couvert, i.e. French Bar Canyon, which is more than a mile long, and where we were obliged to carry all our baggage over long and steep hills. Here we found Indians, among whom was the old Atna chief and his brother, both so overjoyed to see us that they annoyed us with caresses. They assured us that they felt extremely anxious for our safety during our absence, and that they had determined, if the Indians of the sea destroyed us, to collect their friends and go to revenge us. We could not take these professions for gospel. However, we thanked the chief for his friendship and good intention. At the same time, I wished to make him and his friends understand that we were not to be easily destroyed, as our nature and our arms were superior to anything we could meet among the Indians. When the portage was done, we crossed over to the Indian camp. The chief and his brother embarked and crossed with us. The other Indians made use of a small canoe constructed of pine bark and curiously formed, being narrow at both ends, which pointed downwards in the shape of a funnel. The men described it, un canot, puis au bec d'urgence, a sturgeon-nosed canoe. It could carry no more than 2 at a time. The Indians of the camp received us with loud acclamations and made us numerous presents in leather. Our little fellow remained at this camp. He would have accompanied us to the end of the voyage, but the Indians advised him to go and find his friends. I made him a present of some necessary articles, such as pleased him most. The woman also remained, it being the wish of the chief. We continued our route and encamped at a late hour. Sunday, Saturday, July 23rd. Being up, I discovered that one end of the canoe had become detached from the shore and was already out in the current. The other end was but slightly tied, so that we were very near experiencing an accident which would have been of great inconveniency to us, even at this advanced stage of our voyage. We set out, as usual, early. In the course of the day, we passed several long and dangerous rapids, which caused us much difficulty to ascend. Found a camp of Indians busily employed preparing materials for the salmon fishery. They behaved to us with great civility, continued and encamped at our encampment of the 5th June, i.e. near Churn Creek. Sunday, July 24th. We were off early, hard labor and great exertions, yet we advanced but slowly this day. We observed several Indians on horseback and many afoot all along the river, encamped in the evening with a band who were on their way upwards. Monday, July 25th. Arrived early at Chilcotin River. found the old chief there. He came the night before from the Rapide Couvert and rode through the plains beyond the hills which line the water communication. About 200 natives from different quarters were assembled at this place on purpose to have a peep at us en passant. They wished us to delay our departure until their friends, who were on their way to the camp, should arrive. This wish we could not satisfy. The Indians, however, gave us a plentiful feast made up of venison, onions, roots, etc. They also made us a present of some leather and beaver skins. After making a suitable acknowledgment for these obligations, we took our departure. The old chief, with several others in his suite, continued by land to the next stage. At the Portage de Baril, the Indians assisted in passing over our baggage, which was of great service to us, the portage being long and the weather extremely hot. In the course of the afternoon, we shot a deer on the beach and encamped soon after. Tuesday, July 26th. Proceeded on as usual, had rain and bad weather. Got to Portage du Trot in the afternoon, where we encamped. Here again we found the old chief with a large assembly of Atnars and Chilcotins. The latter are from the westward, and came on purpose to have a sight of us, having never seen any white people before. They had the information of our return from the lower parts of the river by messages across the country. The Chilcotins, who are a tribe of the carriers, and whom we could understand without the assistance of interpreters, are from the head of a river, i.e. the Chilcotin that falls into this river. They speak of their country as plentifully stocked with all kinds of animals which are common to the northwest. They seem to be acquainted with Christian goods, and are, if I am not mistaken, of a bold, roguish disposition. Wednesday, July 27th. We had to ascend some very difficult and dangerous rapids, particularly the one where we were nearly lost the 1st of June. Here again one of our canoes narrowly escaped. Hauling it up among steep banks and strong cascades it filled, and all our things got wet. At the end of the carrying place of this rapid we found our cache of provisions, and canoes in the same good order as we left them. After supplying ourselves plentifully, I made over the remainder to the Indian who had it in charge. He immediately divided the same among his friends, who were greatly in want. Having been in a state of starvation for some time previous to our arrival, they deserved much credit for having abstained from the cache. The things which got wet were spread to the sun, but before they were thoroughly dry we embarked and crossed to the opposite bank. Here we found a dipping net, with which one of our young men tried his skill in fishing, but without success. Thursday, July 28th. We had to oppose a strong current which greatly fatigued the men. Early in the afternoon we arrived at the village of the old chief. He got there before us as usual, by land. Here ends the rocky country. All the portages and bad places being passed, we had now but plain sailing for the rest of the voyage. The chief's brother delivered to us 4 bales of fish, which he had in charge. This being the last village of the Atnar nation, the old chief did not follow us any further. Having experienced in him kind attention and much service, I presented him with a gun, ammunition, and some other necessary articles, and to his brother I gave a poniard. Friday, July 29th. This morning, after repairing the canoes, we took our leave of the Indians at 6. The Atnars are good people. They expressed their regret at our departure and begged that we would return to their country as soon as possible, to reside among them as traders. This I in a manner promised. We went on tolerably well for some time, notwithstanding the current we had to oppose, passed several houses and fisheries, and in the afternoon came to the place, i.e. a few miles above Soda Creek, where we saw the first Indians, and where we lost our swivel. Here we found a band of Tahoutins, who received us with kindness. They had some furs, but were loath to part with them. These Indians procure their necessaries from the westward, and seem to be well supplied with iron utensils. They gave us plenty of salmon, which they take in abundance by means of barriers. These barriers form a work of some ingenuity, which is constructed in the manner following. Strong poles are driven into the ground at certain distances, and these distances are filled with frames made of splinters placed so close that a fish cannot pass between. On the top of these are squared pines for the purpose of walking, and underneath are placed props to support the whole against the force of the current. At the outer farthest end is the gate, and sometimes there are gates in the center, which receive the contrivance that confines the fish. This contrivance is composed of splinters the size of a finger, from 10 to 15 feet long, and secured by watap, i.e. spruce root hoops, in the form of a cask. The end that is placed below in the current is made inside like a funnel. Through this the fish enter one by one, and cannot find the way back, but remain as in a net. This country is mountainous and poor. The natives generally live on fish, of which they lay by in the summer a sufficiency for the winter, which season they pass in idleness. A few indeed take animals in snares, and when the crust of the snow is strong, they run down the deer with dogs. But this is a general custom among Indians. Saturday, July 30th. Previous to our arrival at this place, 2 of the Indians had a serious quarrel. The one stabbed the other with a lance, which left a bad wound. Set out at 5. Discovered that one of our caches was destroyed, but it contained only 1 bale of fish. Observed an Indian in a small canoe. He wished to avoid us, and we had some difficulty to approach him. However, with some persuasion, we prevailed upon him to leave his own canoe, and to embark into ours. We were in want of him, in order to introduce us to a camp of his friends, who were at some distance, and when we came near the camp, we sent him ashore to advertise the Indians of our appearance to prevent surprise. In this camp we found several families of the Nascatin nation. The men received us at the waterside armed. Being strangers, they were doubtful of our intentions, but after having been informed, they laid by their weapons and treated us with confidence. Soon after, several more made their appearance, coming from all directions, and haranguing at word illegible. They had some furs, for which they asked a high price. A kind of white shell found along the seashore forms the principal medium of exchange among all the Indians to the west of the Rocky Mountains. This is to them what money is to us. Sunday, July 31st. Passed several camps of Indians in the course of the day. At sunset, as we were approaching a camp to put ashore, the Indians flew to their arms, put on their coats of mail, and appeared as mad as furies. However, upon proper explanations taking place, they altered their tone and received us with kindness. Monday, August 1st. Set out early. Debarked at Kesnell's River, where we found some of the natives, from whom we procured some furs, plenty of fish and berries. Continued our route until sunset. Tuesday, August 2nd. Early on the water. Arrived at the mountain portage. Some difficulty in the rapids. Found our cache safe. Continued and encamped on the left side of the river. Wednesday, August 3. Set out as usual. Found a family of Indians bustily employed in fishing. They gave us as much salmon as we wished. In the course of the day passed several houses. At one of the camps where we put ashore, the chief, who was considered as a great man, offered us 2 bearskins in exchange of other articles, and some of his people followed us to our encampment. Thursday, August 4th. A boy who was a relation of our young illegible embarked with us in order to visit his friends. Proceeded on until night. Friday, August 5th. Set out at an early hour, passed a portage and several rapids, encamped upon the right bank. The men found a large fungus which had grown upon a hemlock tree. It has the same virtue with rhubarb. The natives use it to dress or whiten their leather. Saturday, August 6th. Set out early, and at noon arrived at the fort, where we found Mr. Hugh Faries with his 2 men. End of this journal of a voyage from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, performed in the year 1808 by Simon Fraser. Thank you for listening.